Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. Today we're out here with a neat British rifle. This is in fact almost the shortest serving British service rifle. This is a No.5 Mark I quote-unquote jungle carbine. The development of these goes back to 1942 when the British military was getting some reports that, especially in the Far East, the No.4 service rifle was really longer than it needed to be and was causing obstructions. It was not convenient, and a lot of troops wanted a shorter carbine. So they started experimenting with shortening No.4 rifles, and by early 1944, they had a design pretty much in mind, which was this. These went into production in 1944. About 250,000 of them in total were made, and they were declared obsolete in 1947. So a total of 3 years from when they started making them to when they just cut them off. Now there are a couple of reasons for that we'll get into, but first let's take a look at what makes this gun different. For one thing, I should point out a lot of these are faked. Sometimes people are just making replicas and acknowledging them as such. Sometimes people are trying to sell you a jungle carbine that they've made out of another rifle, because there is a price premium for these. What the British did that really makes this different, other than, there's some obvious things, the stock is shorter, the barrel's been cut down. It's an 18.7 inch barrel, 20 and a half inches overall when you include the flash hider, and the flash hider is another added part. And of course the butt stock is different. A little different profile. It's got a side sling mount and it's got a little rubber recoil pad on it, which is sort of a joke, but we'll touch on that as well. So those are the obvious external changes, and when people fake them, that's what they change. What's much harder to fake is the fact that the British also lightened a whole bunch of different parts of this rifle. This is actually just over 7 pounds, so it's quite a bit lighter than the standard No.4. They did that by taking cuts in places like scallops on the rear of the receiver here and here. There are lightning cuts to the side. The most dramatic one that you can see is actually under the handguard. We'll pull that off in a minute or get a picture of it. The barrel has been almost fluted for about 1 inch right in front of the chamber here. And you know, these mechanical or these machining cuts to the receiver and the barrel are things that are very difficult to fake. They're just not cost effective. So if you know what lightning cuts to look for, you can generally do a very good job of avoiding inauthentic rifles. You'll also find the markings on the socket here, where all Enfields are generally marked. These No.5s were made by 2 companies, Lee and BSA. The BSA ones will be marked M47C. That doesn't have anything to do with the date. That's BSA's production code during World War II. The Lee ones will be marked ROF and then F in parentheses, so Royal Ordnance Factories, Lee. If you don't see those markings, that's a pretty dead giveaway that it's not a legit rifle. They will often be electro-pencil marked, No.5 Mark I. That's not uncommon and that can be legit. And then of course serial numbers. It's typically a 4-digit serial number with either a 1 or a 2-letter prefix. Now, the problems that these had, the reasons that these got made obsolete so quickly, or judged obsolete so quickly, was what's called wandering zero. There's a lot of rumor, a lot of myth about this. Basically what happened is during the war, troops really liked the size and the handling of these carbines. What they didn't like was that a lot of them seemed to have trouble zeroing. You'd zero them once and you'd come back later and they'd be shooting somewhere else, and you'd re-zero them and then you'd come back later and they'd be shooting somewhere else again entirely. And the British actually went through quite a bit of trouble trying to diagnose what was going on here. Some of the rifles work fine, shoot fine. I'm sure a lot of them were in the hands of troops who didn't notice or didn't really put enough effort in to care about exactly where the zero was. But what they found, there were a bunch of theories. Some people thought that the stocks were swelling with changes in heat and humidity. Some people thought it was the muzzle brake that was causing accuracy issues. Enfield, or the British government, tested a bunch of these different hypotheses. What they came to find was that the dispersion, the accuracy problems that the rifles had were actually statistically very similar to the problems you would get from a No.4 rifle, where the bolt wasn't machined correctly and wasn't always coming up perfectly square with the face of the barrel. And the conclusion that they came to was that The wandering zero was caused by lightening cuts under the stock here on the receiver that were of course made to lighten the rifle as part of its role as a lightweight carbine. But they were allowing the receiver to flex slightly under maximum strain, and that was putting an angle between the bolt and the receiver very slightly, and that was causing the zeroing problems. And they tried to make some fixes. They ultimately concluded that it was simply an inherently flawed design, and that's why they decided to render these rifles officially obsolete in July of 1947. Now, some production did continue until the end of 47. There's some known authentic guns dated as late as December of 47. But that's the official story. Lightning cuts in the receiver caused inaccuracy, caused wandering zero, and led to the dropping of this rifle as a British standard. Now, as a handy shooter's gun, I'm really looking forward to shooting this. It is definitely handier. It's got the nice fast bolt action of an Enfield. It's got a 10-round magazine. I think it'll be pretty cool. One other thing to point out, the flash hider on here, a lot of people expect that that's, you know, the standard running thing is that's there so that the shooter doesn't blind themselves shooting at night. In this case, whether that's true or not, the reason that the flash hiders were put on was actually because the British Armed Forces figured that in jungle combat, concealment was very important, and it was a significant factor to conceal a rifle flash from the enemy. So that's the reason, the justification that they gave for developing this flash hider. And it did work pretty well. You don't need one on the No.4 rifles because the barrel is longer and the ammunition doesn't generally have a visible flash during the day. With this carbine length it did, so they needed to put on a flash hider to conceal it. So loading on these is just like a standard Lee-Enfield. We have a charger bridge, we have 5-round stripper clips. We're probably going to get some hang fires with this ammo. This is 1941 production ammo. 5 rounds. That's only got 4 in it. Second clip. One thing to keep in mind, as always with Enfield clips, you want the 2nd and 4th rounds to have the rims riding up on top of rounds 1, 3, and 5. That ensures that you won't get rim lock when you load the magazine up. Or maybe it doesn't, because that's exactly what I have here. Let's fix that. There we go. Rear sight on the No.5 is this very large ghost ring. If you want a more precise sight, you can flip it up and you have a smaller aperture that you can run out to 800 yards. I'm just going to go ahead and use the ghost ring for now. Three for 3, that's pretty good. Now I mentioned the recoil pad that these have. That was originally intended to actually soften recoil. Of course, it's a lighter carbine using a standard service cartridge, so it was thought recoil would be hefty, and it was. Kind of the problem when they designed this recoil pad, though, is that it's actually significantly smaller than the profile of the end of the stock. So, and pretty much all of them today are pretty much rock hard. But originally, you had, yeah, a softer recoil pad, but you were also focusing all the recoil of the rifle onto this smaller area. So I'm not sure it really did a whole lot of good. Today, it definitely doesn't do any good because, like I said, they're all 70 years old and rock hard. Not bad, I like this. It's definitely shorter, it's definitely handier. Obviously I haven't actually tested this one out to see how it holds zero, but for up close jungle fighting, I think these probably would have been effective. Certainly a lot of troops would have preferred them over a full-length rifle. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Very cool. 1945 dated, No.5 jungle carbine here. Let's tune back in to ForgottenWeapons.com for more World War II service rifles.